And it's starting now. Welcome into another edition of Sport Ball with Squam, Stogie, and Skulldog. As you know, I'm your boy Sam. With me, as always, are these two beautiful, exceptional people inside and outside. It's Kyle and Seth. Welcome, boys.
Thank
From
you.
now on, introduce me as my Catholic name, Stogie Barone, Dicky Rubio, Argyle Kyle, first of his name, Matcher of Socks, King of Hot Takes. Please.
Okay, sorry. I apologize. I had that scrawled on my ancient tablet, but I couldn't quite get it out. Are those the names that you just screenshotted from Snapchat so you could just say that right now on the podcast?
Yeah, I'm quite embarrassed you guys saw me do that.
Thought he could slip it by us. Well, this is big news for everyone. I'm recording this podcast for the first time with my new Apple AirPods.
Weird
So
flex,
I'm part
but
of
okay.
the 1% now. Part of the 1% now, you peasants.
A matter of fact,
how you guys
if
doing
you're
though?
not listening to our podcast with AirPods, stop listening. I don't want them.
Rip out your headphones and buy new ones, specifically AirPods.
Oh, we just lost all 5 of our listeners. So
Hey, I know Nick listens to his AirPods, so
Nick has
shout out
AirPods?
Merlina.
Oh, Merlina.
Sorry, I call him Nick.
How dare you?
You should be sorry. So how's everyone doing tonight? Be honest.
I'm undecided on whether I am going out after this podcast or not, so I'm just drinking throughout it, so we might get off the rails, but is that really new?
Not at all.
I don't think we've ever stayed on the rails.
Fair.
If we were a train company, we'd probably
Crash.
lose a lot of lose a lot of coal, as they say.
I'm doing
Trains
well.
take
I'm
more
watching
places,
the
right?
Spurs-Nuggets game.
That's good.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the fourth quarter now, so should be over by the time we finish recording.
Yeah, so we should, to peel back the curtain a little bit, we're recording at 9 p.m. on Thursday, so the Nuggets
Central
Spurs
time.
game is going on right now, Central Time. And so we're not quite sure how that series is going to turn out. And last night, the Warriors just lost to force a 6th game in that series. We're kind of hoping that would be over by now. But
Overrated. All right.
you're welcome. Why don't we just get started, huh, guys?
What have
I
we
don't
been
know why
doing
we're
this whole
sticking
time?
around.
This podcast. In this podcast, it's going to be the NBA playoff first round recap, second round preview, Dame versus Steph friendship ending podcast, big summer blowout.
Make some more
So,
blowouts.
so we wanted to basically recap the first round of the playoffs of the NBA, even though it's not quite over yet, and then preview the second round matchups that we at least know are set. So, without further ado.
That's my joke, you dirty, dirty boy.
That brings me
Let's-
back to our high school graduation.
Oh, when you flamed our entire graduating class with that, dude.
You dropped the without Freddie ado in front of the entire graduating class and their parents.
Where's Freddie
come
Adu?
on.
Is he still playing, or what's up with him?
He's deceased.
I can't imagine he's deceased. I mean, he was a professional football or soccer player when he was 14, so he's got to be like 16 now. He's probably like our age.
Rip Freddie, honestly.
He was born in 1989.
And dead.
And
20 years after we went to the moon.
Wikipedia does not say that he's dead, but the second YouTube video is, remember when Freddie Adu was better than Messi?
I don't remember that.
He probably was when they were both 14.
But right now we're without Freddie Adu, though.
Yeah.
He's still in our hearts.
We have been for years.
All right, so the first thing we wanted to discuss was the last game between the Blazers and the Thunder, specifically Damian Lillard just with the cold-blooded 37-foot jumper
Damian
to win the
Lillard
game
played
as
in that
time
game?
expired.
Big game
No.
Dame.
And he also scored 50, which is pretty good, I would say.
Well, it was less exciting after Kyle had told me that he was going to score 60.
Bro,
during the
I don't know
first
what
half,
happened in
so
the
I was
third
like,
quarter. He scored, I think, 5 or 6 points in the third quarter only.
He's
He
more
was
of a fourth quarter guy.
He was extremely passive that third
Differential,
quarter. He
yeah.
was really just looking to distribute because I think he knew that the defense was really just going to be all on him. So he just did a good job getting his teammates in the best position possible.
He did have, I think,
So-
32 at half, so it wasn't completely outrageous for Kyle to say 60. But
He's actually underselling. It should have been 64. Judging by
did
my
you do
math.
that math in your head?
No, you didn't see
Got
when I
his
pulled up a
TI
little calculator.
84 up.
Nice, dude. Yeah.
So I'm very upset because I missed that game, which was the one good game. Kyle just leans over to Joel. Kyle, please think of your lungs. The emphysema. Your mom was
I have
right.
to be a good role model for all the kids listening, Kyle.
She's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, it's true. So I fell asleep at 9 p.m. that day before the game even started. And I woke up to 70 messages from Seth and Kyle.
How many was it actually?
It was actually 70 around, yeah.
That's,
I mean, I had 80 when I woke up, but like 10 of them weren't from you guys.
How dare you?
And I didn't even realize what happened. I just went to work, whatever. I was like, whatever, I'm not going to check this because I had a meeting right away. And then I got on my meeting, and the first thing I saw like on Instagram was the video of him making it. I'm like, damn it. Also, the video I saw of him shooting it just looked like it was shot on like a Nokia 1999 or something. Like it was just, I don't know who took it, but some small child in the stands, perhaps. But yeah, that was crazy, huh?
That was insane. Like, I was so confused at the end of that game because I think there was like 10 and a half seconds left on the shot clock when he made it, when he caught the ball and was over half court. And he's just standing there dribbling, just staring at the clock and then looking at Paul George, staring at the clock, looking at Paul George. And it came down, there was like 1.8 to 2 seconds left. And he just steps back and Paul George jumps to block that shot or put a face in his hand at the perfect time. And it was like, it's just splash. It was, I don't think there was any way that shot wasn't going in.
I mean, I didn't see it live, but it seemed like pretty good defense.
I thought it was like textbook defense, honestly.
my thought was like, it got down to, I mean, obviously I knew they were going to hold for the last shot. And then it gets down to like 5 seconds. And I'm like, Damian, like, go.
Right.
And he's just like 2 seconds, step back into the side.
Because you thought he was going to go to the rim or at least, like,
I mean,
you know,
at least
do a
make
little
move,
penetration.
try to get some separation or something before pulling up. But he's just like, no, I got this.
That was such a cold-blooded shot, man. Oh, my God.
He's insane.
I don't know.
Best point guard in the NBA? Hey.
All right, well, we're about to discuss that. Should we just hop into that now?
As well.
I mean, what else do we really have to talk about? Who are we besides this?
You could
This
talk
is all
about
we have in life.
Russell Westbrook just probably being one of the most overrated point guards.
Yeah, I thought we'd hit on the Thunder later after we really dive into this. So, a little backstory for our listeners. You guys, you five still out there? You good? I hope you're doing well. So last night, one of the 70 things that I woke up to was Kyle declaring that Damian Lillard was the best point guard in the NBA above Steph Curry. Let's take James Harden out of this equation and put him as a shooting guard for right now. And so, yeah, I mean, you could argue either way, but for this argument, we're arguing one way. Thank you. So, so Kyle mentioned Steph, Dame, and Kyrie, and he actually had Kyrie second at first, I think, but then he came to his senses.
He had Kyrie first at first.
Yeah. At first, I was just like, I was way too on edge, and I was like, I don't want to say I don't want to say I overreacted to the game because I mean Damian's been doing this pretty much since he's been in the league, but I don't think he's done it on such. I mean, he had that shot against the Rockets a couple years ago in the playoffs, but I don't think he's been on like the stage like this. Like I feel like this team is kind of a tier above the other teams he's had, but still,
yeah.
No, so it just got me thinking. Like, I mean, he's got the best defense out of the other two listed. That's for sure.
So
he could score with the other two. He can keep score with them. But go ahead.
Let me start off before we really get into it because I did something that's going to shock you guys.
I did some research.
I did research.
Oh my God.
I did some basketball reference. Yeah.
Tell me you pulled up the Basketball Reference player comparison.
No, actually, I just did the player index or whatever, where you can just like filter it by a bunch of stuff.
That's
Okay,
fair.
I
Yeah.
have the player comparison up, and that was
Okay.
also the first podcast research I've ever done. So,
I'm just gonna give like an overview of their careers and their stats, just so we have something as a basis to go off of. I'm not trying to like make a point either way right now. And basically, the reason we're discussing Steph versus Dame is we all agree they're 1 and 2, right? Right now, and it's just a disparity as to which one's better. So over their careers, so Steph is 30, he's in his 10th season. Dame is only 28, he's in his 7th season, so a little younger. Steph has 2 MVPs, 6 All-NBAs. I just included this year because I figured he'd make it. So that would be 3 first for him, 2 second, and 1 third if we assume he makes the first team this year, which may be an assumption, but we'll just take it for now. He's a 6-time All-Star. Obviously, he has 3 championships. I would say he's definitely a future Hall of Famer. I would say maybe top 30 player. We can debate that of all time. So I guess that was a little of my opinion. Sorry. Damian, four-time All-NBA. One first. He'll make the second this year, so that'll be 2 seconds, and then a third he has as well. He's a 4-time All-Star, former Rookie of the Year. No championships, as we know. I would say probably future Hall of Famer as well. So the last 4 seasons is kind of interesting to juxtapose them because this is basically both of their primes, right? So the last 4 seasons, Steph is 27 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Shooting splits are 48, 43, 91. That would be shooting percentage, 3-point percentage, and field goal percentage. Dame
free throw
is.
percentage
These are
is the
very,
last one.
very similar stats. What's that?
Free throw percentage is the last one.
What did I say?
You should field goal percentage, which is the same thing as shooting percentage, which you said earlier.
Why do they even call it a free throw? You shoot it. It should be a free shot.
That's a good
Anyway,
point.
thank you. Damian, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. A little slightly less efficient, 44%, 37%, 90%. Pretty similar PERs. Steph's defensive rating is 106 to Damian's 111, which is a little better, but essentially the same. In the playoffs, these guys are basically the same. Steph is 26, 6 and 6. Dame is 27, 4 and 6. Obviously, very, very close stats. Steph's effective field goal percentage is better and a little higher PR. So that's basically where we're at. Seth, do you have more stats from your data mining?
Data mining. So I was just thinking about. So I was firmly in the Steph camp, and I still think Steph is better. But I think there's a few things that Damian does have on his side. And I was thinking of it just from before I looked at the stats, like maybe Damian has been better in the playoffs. And also another thing we should consider, we're talking about right now. So I think Kyle might concede that Steph has a better resume if you look at their entire careers, but Damian's a few years younger, right? So we're talking about right now. And so maybe if we look at this playoffs, it seems like Damian has been more of an impact player than Steph. But then looking at the totals from just this year in the playoffs, Steph is shooting above 50% from 3. Damian's at 48, so still really good. Steph's averaging almost 25 points. Damian's at 33, so I would say he's probably outperforming him in this playoffs. And it seems like Lillard has the edge on like clutch moments, particularly this year. And then I would say the other thing that Lillard has over Steph is his durability. It seems like Steph is usually misses at least a few games, has some nagging injuries. Obviously, there was the 2016 year when the Cavs won the finals, and there was questions about how healthy Steph was. And Lillard really doesn't have that, at least so far in his career. And then Kyle and I were talking earlier, but I think from what I hear, Lillard is a really good teammate, really good leader. And just by virtue of seeing how well Portland has done this season, rebounding from their debilitating, demoralizing loss last year against the Pelicans, it shows that being a leader of that team and how much resilience he's instilled into his teammates. And so I would say that's the argument for Lillard. But to me, it's still one of those things. It's just like, I know Steph is better.
I know, yeah.
I think you could definitely argue Damian's playing better right now than Steph is.
For sure. Kyle, before you go, I was when I saw the stats, I kind of expected Steph to have a leg up just statistically, just disregarding what I'm seeing on the court. But their stats are basically the same over the last 4 years, which I thought was interesting. Although Steph is a more efficient shooter and has a slightly better offensive and defensive rating. I mean, it's definitely very close in that regard. And I think that maybe what's happening a little bit is that Damian just keeps getting better and better every year, right? We've seen him just get incrementally better, running the pick and roll, going to the basket, taking deep threes. He just gets better at a certain thing every year, right? So he's kind of slowly getting better and better. And as Steph starts to decline in his late prime, I think that eventually, and maybe that happens next year, in the next couple of years, we may consider Damian the best point guard in the league.
See, and I think that's where you guys probably thought I sounded crazy because I didn't specifically state it. But what Seth said was right. Like, I'm talking about right now, not just playoffs, but just like this season as a whole. And I think we've seen this season, I think, is that intersection of those two players. And now Damian Lillard, obviously he's got a couple years, or he's a couple years younger than Curry too, I think, which helps. So he's got, he's 2 years younger. So this is about what we would think a player's prime is in the NBA, and what Lillard has done this year with this Portland team is just, I think it just puts him in that position. And even just like his stats, which you just read everything there. When I was looking at these two, I was actually kind of surprised at like how similar, if you look for their careers too, which kind of is fluky because you had those 2 years where Steph was literally just a man on fire, right?
Yeah.
They averaged literally the same exact points. Their rebound differential was like point something. Their assist differential was like point something. Like, it's insane how their careers are, how similar they are. And I think it just has to do with, one, Steph, the rings, right? That's what everyone talks about. And Portland is, in my opinion, a pretty small market for the NBA.
For sure.
And it's not like you're going to sit there and listen to a casual fan talk about, oh, did you see what Damian Lillard did last night? Except for when he hit that shot, except for when he's on the biggest stages. But no one's seeing him day in, day out, and how he plays with an inferior team and players to what Steph Curry's playing with. Like, I said in the text to Seth, one of the 70 messages we sent, like, Steph Curry might just be a product of his environment. Not completely, but I think a lot of it has to do with that. Like, he's got arguably the best overall player in the NBA and KD on his team. He's got one of the best two-way or 3-and-D, maybe two-way shooting guards that we've seen in the last 15 years in Klay Thompson. He's got a big man who doesn't even want to shoot the ball, and all he wants to do is play defense and make the right play. So what do defenses do in that situation? Steph's going to get so many more open shots, in my opinion, than Damian Lillard, who, until this year, Nurkic, this is just Nurkic's career year, and it sucks that he got injured. But before this, he was nowhere near the consistent player that he was this year. And you have, help me out
CJ?
here. Yes.
CJ White.
Yeah. Who I'd say once every 7 days, he'll go into a game and drop 30 something. But otherwise, he's dropping 12 to 15 points a game, 4 to 5 assists, a couple rebounds. Like this whole team is Damian's, and defenses literally only, for the most part, have to plan for Damian Lillard. Where it's Steph Curry, or so Lillard doesn't get the 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 slack, or the not the slack, the what's the word I'm looking for?
The
How do I do this?
attention.
Yeah, he doesn't get the attention that Steph Curry gets in, every game, especially regular season stuff.
I'm just
So I
picturing,
will say,
I'm just picturing Kyle with a calendar on the wall, and every 7 days he marks down CJ at 30 points. And
I'll pull it up. Yeah, you want it?
I have my calendar right here. It's just pictures of CJ in different poses. So I will say a couple of points, Kyle, before I let Seth maybe rebuff as well. So I'm in the Steph Curry camp as well, but I will say diving deeper, I drew more towards Kyle's side than I thought I would, even though I'm still in the Steph Curry camp. A couple of points of what you made, I think that where we really saw who Steph is when KD wasn't there yet, right? I mean, there's the 73 win season. There's a season before that when they won the title, didn't have KD, and no one really expected them to go that far. Then you have the 15-16 season where he averaged 30 points and he shot 45% from three, which is pretty good, I think. I mean, that's one of the best offensive seasons ever, I feel confident saying. And when you said, he's a product of his environment, I think that's kind of true, but also I think he's a big reason why that environment was built in the first place. I think that he's an elite culture setter, which you can say Damian is too, right? But I don't necessarily know if we should knock Steph for his environment when he's one of the big reasons that environment exists, which is the same reason that, there's a good environment in Portland as well, as because of Damian. So I think they both have that strength. Also, I saw something on Reddit today, and it was players with the best percentage of shots from 30 to 40 feet. So very, very deep threes. And Steph's in first at 36%, and then Damian is in third at 34%. And second is Brooke Lopez, of all people.
My God.
Which is really a sign of where the NBA is going.
That is wild.
But I think, Kyle, you bring up some very good points, and
thank you.
Statistically, they're similar, and I think actually the point you made is good about defenses having to pay maybe more attention to Damian because there's no one else to cover, right? And that may be a big reason why Steph's shooting efficiency and PER is higher, right? Because he just has better players around him. But he's just better. I don't know. I think.
I mean, that's the thing is when we have players like Steph Curry, who is a generational talent, and we're never going to see a shooter like him. Well, most likely never going to see a shooter like him again. We probably said that when Ray Allen was in his prime too, but
yeah.
People just hold on to that for so long and don't want to, even think about the fact that their favorite player or one of their favorite players in the league isn't the best at what they do anymore. And I'm not knocking Steph Curry, but I just think people don't recognize what Lillard has done for the entire city of Portland. It's pretty much what Steph did for the entire, for his city too, before they started going on these playoff and these championship runs. Like, what do we do if this might be that one season where the Warriors weren't supposed to make it? Like, Portland's not supposed to make it, but Lillard's hot right now. He's the best point guard in the NBA currently. And I don't think that, as much as I hate to say it, if Denver wins this series against the Spurs, I don't think they have an answer for him. He's not going to, unless Gary Harris is going to play all-star defense. And we've really only seen that happen like 2 out of the last 4 games in the Spurs series, and it hasn't even been all-star. It's just been good defense. So if he takes them, to to face Houston in the Western Conference Finals, because we'll get to that later. But and even if they don't make the finals, but they take Houston to 6 or 7 game series, I think a lot more people are going to take notice to what I've already noticed.
So you're here to hear first. Kyle hates Steph Curry, and the Blazers are going to win 3 out of the next 4 championships. Seth, rebuttal?
I think looking at just this season, I think so. Steph is shooting 43.7% from 3, and Damian shot 36.9. And like obviously both of those are very good, but I think there is a big difference there. Mm-hmm. And certainly it's important to consider the scheme, but just from the games that I've watched, like Steph routinely hits contested threes or gets himself open with his dribbling and his off the ball running around screens, getting open ability as well. So I don't think it's just that, hey, defenses are double teaming KD, so that's why Steph is open. Like, yeah, it's really hard to guard the Warriors, and they do definitely get open shots because of the talent on their team. But I think a lot of that is also Steph's talent about getting himself space one way or the other. So maybe we can split hairs. I would still say that Steph performed better overall this season, but I think just the current hot streak means that Damian Lillard is playing right now currently better than Steph, and is playing like the best point guard in the league right now if we don't count Harden.
Yeah, and I think that, and maybe this is a little silly, but I feel like Steph has been the best point guard in the league for many years, and it would take someone has to dethrone him for me to say that he's not the best anymore, and he has to maybe take a step back. And I just don't think he's really taken a step back this season. I mean, he still averaged, 27 points on 45%, 44% from 3. So until I see him take a step back, I really don't see anyone dethroning him. And although Damian has played better in the first round, I don't think one round of the playoffs is enough for me to put Damian over him quite yet. But it is closer than I thought when I started my research. And I will say that I can only remember 2 series-ending buzzer beaters, and they've both been made by Damian Lillard. And I don't know how many there have even been in history. So, I mean, that's certainly something to consider.
No,
as a side note, Nikola Jokic has 43 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists, and Denver's down by 17 with 1:45. So,
I just want to say, if you're going to talk a Game of Thrones, you should know that the one that everybody wants on the throne isn't going to be on the throne. You know what I mean?
No spoilers.
I was talking basketball.
Oh, the Warriors.
The Game of Thrones throne.
Very good, Kyle.
Thank you.
Let's move on because we're like 30 minutes in, and we
that
only
sounded much better
topic.
in my head.
I want us to just breeze through all of the first round recaps, okay, boys? So
most
are we
of them
locked
are
in? Are we
simple,
loaded?
So.
But let's really talk about the Thunder while we're still in this series. So they've lost in the first round again, which is all they've done since Kevin Durant left, who was a good player. What?
Easy now.
And even Russell Westbrook, even in his MVP season, couldn't get him on the first round.
Wow.
And many will look at this series as an indictment of Russell and how you can't win the playoffs with him, right? Which I think may be fair. But also the best player on the team may be Paul George. Probably is Paul George. And didn't seem right. Definitely is Paul George, excuse me. I sneezed a little bit. And I sneezed and it came out Paul George might be their best player. And he was not right. He didn't seem right in the playoffs. He's definitely dealing with an injury, whether we want to make an excuse for him in that way or not. But I just kind of want to open it up for talk about what do you think this does to Russell Westbrook's legacy and also what the Thunder can do moving forward because this is their third straight first round exit, and they have a lot of money tied up in Paul George, Westbrook, and Steven Adams. So, what's there to be done when they don't have a lot of cap space left?
My take is that Russell Westbrook is who we thought he was. I mean, he's done this his whole career. He's never been a high efficient scorer. He's always put up stats. He's always played hard. Sometimes he gets too revved up to the point where he can't control his game and he's flying around, getting charges and missing layups and pulling up for long twos. And it's never really led to winning. The closest was that 2016 year when they blew the 3-1 lead against the Warriors in the conference finals. I guess they also made the NBA finals in 2012. But
yeah, we were in do you remember that? We were in Tennessee.
You're the only 10 I see, baby.
Thank you.
We
were building houses.
You're damn right.
So I don't feel like this series changes his legacy at all. I think this is what his legacy was. And unless he totally changes how he plays, it's going to be really hard for the Thunder to win. I think they could try to explore if they can get anything useful in exchange for Adams, if they feel like he's really on the downturn and this series exposed that it's hard to play him in a playoff series against a certain team, certain type of team. But I also think there's value for a city like Oklahoma City to have a team that's exciting and that makes the playoffs every year. And even if they're like probably not in championship contention, I think if they ran it back with this team, it's not impossible that they'd make the second round. Mm-hmm. And so,
wow, how fun!
Well, I will push back a little on your reaction to that, Kyle. If you couldn't tell on the podcast, he had the stank face on when Seth said that, like someone had farted in his room. It was probably him. But
blamed him right there.
I guess I probably said this on the podcast already, but I just feel like with a small market team, it does mean something to make the playoffs every year and to have a star that's known nationally reside in your hometown that's pretty small, right? And so I don't think you always have a choice, but I really just feel like the Thunder had no choice but to max Russell Westbrook out to just stay relevant. I mean, they're the smallest market in the league, or one of the few smallest. And if they want to make money, if they want to sell out their stadium, they need a star. And they have one in Russell, and he's flawed, but he's good enough to raise their floor to a playoff team. So, I mean, I don't know if you polled Oklahoma City fans, if the majority of them would agree with what I just said, but on the outside looking in, it just seems like that may be a better strategy for a small market team.
I guess so, but at this point, they have so much money tied up between three players, and arguably you could say their third best player isn't even one of their three most paid players, which is a problem in my opinion. If you're going to pay people, you want them to be, the best players on the court, or at least for your team. And
who are you saying is the third best player? German chocolate cake?
No, I think it'd be Jeremy Grant, but I think it's
Syracuse, former Syracuse player Jeremy Grant, I might add.
Right.
Did you pee in his urinal?
I did not.
Steven Adams is going to make like 27, 28 mil or something like that next year.
That's a lot, yeah.
Good luck unloading that.
Right.
Like,
that's the thing. Who's going to take him?
I mean, exactly. So they've really shot themselves in the foot. I mean, congrats, I guess, for going all in, and convincing Paul George to stay in your small market so that you can lose in the first round in the toughest conference in the NBA every year. Great.
I'm sensing dripping sarcasm coming from Kyle right now.
Like, I mean, I hate the Bulls front office and their organization, but I'd rather them keep not making the playoffs for the next 3 years or however long it takes to get Garpax out of the front office so that we can have just a ton of assets
have a bunch
built
of little
up that
Zions running around.
we could trade or do whatever with, and we'll have competent people in the front office that know how to actually run a basketball organization. I'd much rather have that than go and try and buy the overrated star in free agency or the star on decline just to try to squeak in the 8th seed of the Eastern Conference. Like, and I know the Thunder weren't the 8th seed, but what to get them?
Well, I would say that strategy definitely, I would support that for the Bulls if I were a Bulls fan. But I think, like, if you look at how have teams had success, and there's been this whole process era, right, where the Sixers went all in on that, and are they that much different than the Thunder? Like, they're probably going to lose to Toronto in the second round of the playoffs, and we're at like the peak of what they were they're all done with their young assets, right? They don't have any more draft picks that they're going to stock up. So it's like, that's your best case scenario. And then if you look at some of the teams that are title contenders, it's the Warriors, who did draft really well and got lucky with some of those things, and then were able to draw KD in free agency. It's the Bucks, who just lucked into Giannis. It's Toronto, who did a very courageous, bold trade to get Kawhi. So I don't think it's necessarily true that the only Houston, for sure, who, again,
the smartest man in basketball.
Yeah. And they got James Harden from a trade. So
from the Thunder.
I don't think it's like, I'm definitely not saying that like the Thunder have made no mistakes and they're just like unlucky. I think they are to blame for where they're at, but I agree. I don't know. At this point, you might as well just run it back because you're kind of out of other options. And I don't think that like just blowing it up for every team that's not a title contender, I don't think that's really going to work, especially considering, like, I don't think first round draft picks are really as valuable as people think. Maybe the number one pick is valuable, but even that isn't a home run every time.
No,
so
but if you can accumulate multiple, then you're going to increase your odds of hitting on one of those first round draft picks, especially if you can somehow squeak your way into getting two of the lottery picks, or even 3, who knows, but
for sure. And that's what the Sixers did. They just wanted as many shots at it as they could, and half of them, the Jahlil Okafors and the Nerlens Noels and the Markelle Fultzes didn't work out, but they got Simmons and Embiid out of it, and other assets that they were able to get, Harris and Butler.
I mean, Boston's been doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And Boston was able to do it without really tanking.
Yeah.
They just
but it helped that they were an attractive city and team for free agents as well.
That's the other thing too.
Right, because most free agents aren't going to go to Oklahoma City. But how many teams are an attractive free agent destination? It's like, who has gotten all the big name free agents? Golden State got KD. Boston got Gordon Hayward. But
it's the big market teams or the smart basketball teams, and that's what it is.
Yeah, but
I think more now than ever, it's the smart ones.
Yeah,
there's like 5 or 6 in the whole league. It's like,
because those are the teams that are investing in analytics and stuff like that to improve their overall team, while other teams are sitting in the back and saying, wow, they're going to get a player like that, I'm going to try to find a player just like that, and not knowing the basis on why said team went for that player. It's just follow the leader for the other teams in the league that aren't investing in technically their future and innovation. Say. Yeah.
I will say too,
there's a lot of teams, the majority of the teams in the NBA are not free agent destinations, and are probably not going to draft very well. And unless they really make some smart moves or try to go full process like the Sixers did, which is harder now with the change in the odds. Like, I think it's probably better for some teams like the Thunder to just try to be at least somewhat relevant, and maybe they'll get lucky in a few playoff series in the future. And yeah, they definitely should have made some different decisions, but where they're at right now, you probably just have to run it back.
I will say too, maybe it should be the last thing you say on this topic, but like it's easier for the Bulls to tank because it's such a big city. Like it's the third biggest city in the country, and even though we're tanking, we can still fill the stadium just with the amount of people that we have. Like I went to a random game this season, and the stadium was basically full, and we're one of the four worst teams in the league, and we're not playing anyone really special. And the same can go for New York, who's successfully tanking right now, and Philadelphia, that's the fourth largest city in the country. And if you're a city like Oklahoma City and you tank for a couple years, you might not even fill your stadium at all. Is that the other question?
Houston is a bigger city than Philadelphia. Houston's fourth. Philadelphia might be fifth.
You're right, it's fifth. That was it? That's all you stopped me for?
Yeah. I was putting my hand up like fifth, not fourth.
Oh, I see.
I thought it was like me raising my hand.
Yeah, well, you can
But
go to hell.
that.
So, so I just think that maybe if they changed for a couple years in Oklahoma City, they wouldn't fill the stadium, they wouldn't make money. They might have to move the team even. I mean,
which is
there's
what
talk
Seattle
of that
wants.
in New Orleans.
So.
Right. There's talk of that in New Orleans if they lose Anthony Davis, that they're not going to be able to fill the stadium and they're going to move the team. So would you rather lose in the first round or not have a team, you know?
If you're the fans,
Not of a team.
I guess, yeah, you'd rather lose in the first round. But if you're an organization, I don't know.
Yeah. It's an interesting debate, and it's one of the biggest debates in the NBA. So I'm glad we had it, but let's fucking move on. Am I right, boys? Let's quickly go over Sixers versus Nets. You guys have any just heated things that you need to say about this series?
I do. I want to give a shout out.
Wait, hold on. Did you want to say something about how big Philadelphia was in regards to other cities in the U.S.?
I would like to. So shout out to Zach Lowe. I really like when podcasts I listen to actually talk about like the intricacies of basketball. And he made this point about dribble handoffs when Ben Simmons dribbles and hands off to JJ. And then the next game I watched, he went off on it and did it like 3 times in a row, and JJ would make a shot or he'd hand it off and then they'd roll. And then there was one time where he faked the handoff, the defense went for it, and then he like slipped in and went for the dunk. And I thought that was a really smart play because since Ben Simmons doesn't have a jump shot, defenses sag off of him so much that when he comes and dribbles, hands it off to JJ, sets a screen on whoever's guarding JJ, Simmons' defender isn't going to be able to get up to guard Redick fast enough to contest his 3-point shot. So that just was like a really simple but ingenious play. And I think it's going to force teams to have to play up tighter on Ben Simmons then, which allows him to drive more effectively and turn the corner on them. I think props to the Sixers.
Intricacies of the game really get me going.
Yeah, I think props to the Sixers for figuring that wrinkle out and making those adjustments that they needed to make after Brooklyn started looking like they might be able to upset Philadelphia. And yeah, I'm just pumped for Sixers Raptors now.
Yeah. I really don't have any big thoughts on this, I guess. Joel Embiid's health moving forward is going to be very key for them. And he's going to run into a better post defender than Jared Allen next round. So we'll see how that goes, which we may talk about a little later. Kyle, any thoughts?
I mean, when Embiid's on the court, he's the best player that Philadelphia has. When he's not, it's tough for them. You know, it's going to be a test of skill against Toronto. So,
how are Embiid's knees, though? Are they the bee's knees?
You could say that. They call me the bee's knees, but these bees ain't knees. Is that what I said?
They call you Matter of Socks.
Argyle Kyle, thank you.
First of his name.
All right, let's talk about the Rockets and the Jazz, which just wrapped up.
There was
month.
something that I wanted to mention. I could save this for the end.
Okay. So the Jazz put up a decent fight, I guess, but they're out on the first round. I said I guess, so, you know.
They didn't, but
it was a 50-50 shot, and I guessed wrong, I guess. I thought it was a couple of things I want to mention is I thought their defensive strategy was kind of interesting. So for those listening who had
doggy style defense,
yeah. So they basically just fuck James Harden from behind, put the kids to bed, please God. So basically, to stop James Harden's step back three, which is the shot that's broken basketball, the players will just stand behind him and give him an open runway to the basket, which for all of basketball history has been the one thing you're not supposed to do on defense. So they basically play defense like I do in real life, but apparently they're praised for it or whatever.
I've praised you for years. I don't know what you're talking about.
So basically they stand behind him. They throttle him to the middle. Throttle? Funnel. They fuck him so hard he has to run in the middle. And then they basically making him choose.
And then Rudy Gobert does not step up to defend him. And James Harden just hits his...
I was about to get there, Kyle. Jesus.
I got there for you.
Rudy Gobert, the French rejection. The French rejection, is that right?
Is that one of his nicknames on what is it, Bleacher Report that always has the nicknames?
Yeah, sorry, it's the French erection. That's my mistake. So basically they have Rudy defending that floater or the lob, and they just have confidence that the off-ball guy as well will help and get a hand in there, and they're banking on Harden missing the floaters or them getting a hand on the lob. And it works kind of well, honestly. Harden, in the game we were watching, Kyle, Harden shot 3 for 20 or something like that, and he had to pass a lot out of those situations. He wasn't really confident in the floater. But they still lost in 5 games. So I don't know how you stop James Harden. I will say that this is kind of what I talk about when I don't necessarily want to name a rim defending player as the defensive player of the year, because then you get into a series like this and tough series, just a tough matchup for Rudy Gobert. He couldn't defend them. I mean, I guess no one can defend Harden, but I think Giannis could have done a better job, and that's why I would name him defensive player of the year. A player that really is above any sort of matchup, and you can't say, he can't be played in this matchup, because I don't think that's really how we should be talking about the defensive player of the year. Now, do you guys think that, give me your thoughts on the Rockets and also the thoughts on, are the Jazz just a regular season team and this doesn't work in the playoffs, or do you think that this is just a bad matchup for them?
I think, obviously, it's a bad matchup. It's the Houston Rockets. It's the team that's going to beat Golden State in the next round, and really most likely...
Wait a second, Kyle. You think the Rockets are going to beat Golden State?
Yeah.
This is the first I've heard of it. It actually might be the first our listeners have heard it, though.
Probably.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. I've talked to you guys a ton about it. But the more I watch these playoffs, and I want to say, disregarding maybe Philadelphia, and that's about it, but the teams that have been able to dominate other teams or do so well in the playoffs have been, the small ball teams that can run a center like Rudy Gobert off the floor, or a true center off the floor. And like I said, we just talked about how it's the smart teams that are making the runs every year. And I think those smart teams, like the Rockets, are making lineups making a roster to support their 1 or 2 best players on the court at all times, where every player knows their role and knows that it's X person's team. In this case, it's James Harden's team, and a team that can run and get rid of basically that 1980s style of basketball where it's just bruisers, right? And you see the same thing in Milwaukee. That's exactly what they did. Is they built the perfect team to suit the way Giannis plays. Get a bunch of shooters, people that could, play defense well, and support him on the defensive end, even though he probably doesn't need it. But on the offensive end, what's he going to do? He's going to drive to the rim. So what do you have to do? You have to have players that are going to pull defenders out from the paint, and that's what all four players around Giannis are able to do. So I just don't think that this team is made, to suit necessarily how Donovan Mitchell plays and how maybe Ricky Rubio plays, because like Gobert's he's a great player, but he's not a player that I'd want to have on my team, I don't think, in the playoffs.
Seth?
I think it's hard when one of your best players in today's game is a big man who has trouble like guarding little guys. So like I'm
what I was saying pretty much.
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you, really. I like the team constructions where you have a guy who can guard big players if you need that, but he's not the focal point of your team, and he can spread the floor, right? So the Bucks have Brook Lopez, who apparently can shoot 35-foot three-pointers better than Damian Lillard. But it's like, if he's off the floor, it's not like the Bucks really lose much offensively.
Mm-hmm.
The Celtics have Aaron Baines, who can be a big bruising player in the post against a Joel Embiid if he needs to. But if he's off the floor, we're better offensively, or having the types like Al Horford, who can still guard little players and chase them around and guard the pick and roll and guard players like Giannis, or wing players who are crafty, right? Or Draymond, a player who can guard wings but hold his own in the post as well. So again, if you're Utah, you probably just have to run it back. You have the players that you have. You're not going to just dump Rudy Gobert and be like, well, he's not the type of player we need in today's NBA. But I think the future of their franchise is in Donovan Mitchell's hands right now, and Gobert can only take him so far.
I agree with everything you said. I have nothing further to say.
Move it on.
Actually, I'm out. I'll see you guys later. Let's quickly go over Celtics, Pacers. I was a little surprised it was a sweep, especially since I picked them in 7. Seth, I'm going to give you 45 seconds to talk about the Celtics, and I want you to make love to me with your words.
The Celtics are like the waves crashing at sunset.
Holy shit.
With a full moon overhead.
I am rock hard.
Seagulls just chirping in the wind.
Kyle looks so confused.
I'm trying to picture it, but it's not working.
Well, I was there.
So everyone's talking about how we lost Marcus Smart, and so that actually is like a little bit of helping us because it works out with how much the players are playing and the rotation.
Tighter rotation, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's mostly legit. I'd like to see it when Smart is healthy, just ditching Rozier and letting him sit on the bench. And I was always confused, like during the regular season when everyone was talking about how there's all these problems because the top players aren't playing enough and Jalen's unhappy and Tatum's unhappy. And then like Semi Ojeleye would play like 18 minutes. And it wasn't even like during junk time. So it was like, okay, so part of this is like by choice. So I always thought in the playoffs they'd figure it out, or those minutes would be distributed a little bit better. But I think we're playing well. I'm excited. I don't think just because we swept the Pacers means that we're definitely going to be the Bucks, but I believe in us.
That was great. 45 best seconds of my life.
It's probably like
Kyle, quickly, anything you'd like to add?
Brad coaches best when the lights are brightest, and this is the biggest stage.
Honestly, that was more poetic than what Seth said.
um, but no, I agree with everything that Seth said. The tighter rotations have really solidified, the players' roles on the Celtics team, which I think is letting them actually reach their best potential. Obviously, it also helps that Gordon Hayward is been extremely aggressive on the offensive end, and he's over the last 2.5 weeks of the regular season, you could see he was coming into that Utah Gordon Hayward form, which is what the Celtics paid him for. And in my opinion, they're peaking at the perfect time. Yeah, you could say, oh, they swept the Pacers. Well, Golden State can't even get past the Clippers right now. So,
Good point.
and yeah, so I'm in the camp that they're gonna beat the Warriors. They're gonna beat the Bucks in the next round. I know a lot of people think, oh, Giannis, he's gonna Gianni. How am I talking about right now? Giannis is gonna just carry the entire team. Yeah, Giannis can only do so much, but what happens when you play a competent defensive team for a 7-game series? Because that's not Detroit. That's what the Celtics are. So they have every single. It could be argued that every position on the Celtics is exponentially better than every positional player on Detroit. And
Sure.
I don't think that Giannis isn't going to get the same wide open lanes that he got. And I know everyone was freaking out over Twitter and Instagram and everything from that one layup that Giannis had where he switched hands when he was falling down. It's like, great, that's
dope.
one shot that you made against a terrible
Can't
team.
you just let people be happy? Jesus, that was a cool shot.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's like everyone's like, all up in arms. Not all up in
Who
arms.
is all up in arms? Because of
That was the wrong word. I was gonna say something.
People are taking to the streets with rifles because of that shot.
I was gonna say something. I'm taking the streets. I'm up in arms over that shot.
I see.
I was gonna say something extremely inappropriate that even the kids probably shouldn't hear. So I tried to reroute, midway.
Even the kids who should hear the most inappropriate things, even the kids shouldn't hear this.
So
I have things
I'm
to
just
say.
saying, Celtics
Go first.
win next round, and we're gonna see them and Houston in the finals.
I would just have two quick things to say since it's in the 58th minute. We haven't even touched any of the second round series yet. So my first thing is that the Celtics, while they did sweep the Pacers are literal butt cheeks, and their defense looked elite for sure. But also their offense didn't look great either. I mean, these games were mostly like 95 to 87. All of them were 95 to 87 exactly. It's never been done before. I'd be a little nervous about that against a team as good as with the first overall defense in the league that they're facing next round, which is the Bucks from Milwaukee. Have you heard of them? And so I would be a little nervous of that, and I think that's going to be a great series. The second thing I wanted to mention is that you've heard of Semi Ojeleye. Well, I have a semi right now. Thank you. Sam out. Okay, can we move on, please? Jesus. Let's just
Did you know that Semi Ojeleye has probably the most amount of nicknames on Basketball Reference? One is just Semi, which is his name. 2, Muscles Jesus. 3, people call him the Ox. Some people call him Thor, not Black Thor, just Thor because of his hair, I think. They also call him
Black?
for reasons that are obvious.
They don't call the other one White Thor.
But he's the original. They also call him the Ojeleye Factory. Don't understand that. And he's also called the Man Made of Granite. So if you need a countertop, he's the man to go to.
Thank you for that insight. I appreciate that. Quickly, on the last 3 series, Bucks, Pistons, Raptors, Magic, Warriors, Clippers. I put Warriors, Clippers on this list that we're just going to breeze through, but that's before I realized that they're going to lose to the Clippers last night. So maybe we can dive into that a little more. One thing I did want to mention, let's hit Bucks, Pistons. We have nothing to talk about, right? The Pistons aren't even a real team. They actually just propped up 5 cardboard players. Let's talk. I just want to mention something quick from Raptors
I
Magic.
would like to say first before you get in there, the only thing about Detroit is Blake Griffin is going to win the Blake of the Year award. So
The Blake of the Year award.
yeah, he's the Blake of the Year for sure.
What about Blake Lively?
No, Blake Griffin's Blake of the Year. Go
So
ahead.
you think Blake Lively is a strong candidate?
I mean, she might be going for it, but she's got no shot. It's either Blake Lively, Blake Bortles, or Blake Griffin, and Blake Griffin just takes the cake, you know?
I
What about Blake
we know
Shelton?
Bortles isn't going to be it because he basically got cut from the Jaguars.
They cut the boat. What are you going to do? He's lost at
Sometimes
sea.
he's the woat.
Blake Shelton, anybody?
Ooh,
Just put out
what's he done for me
new
lately?
song. He got divorced from his wife. So, not this year. I think it was last year.
Pretty
This is off
even
the
year.
rails.
English poet.
I'm sorry.
English poet.
Do not hire us to take your coal across the country. We will be off the rails in a second.
English
I just had
poet
one
William
quick-
Blake, who died in 1827.
His first name was Blake.
Anybody?
2019 was his year, though. I just want to make one quick point about Raptors Magic, okay? Seth, I want you to
I
look me in
owe
the
you
eyes
this
when I
$10. What does it make me?
Kyle owes us $10 because he bet us that the Magic would win. For some reason, he must have been on edge that night as well. Seth, I want you to look me deep in the eyes right now. Are you looking? I want to talk about Marcus Gasol. And here's why. Okay. I still think that matchup-wise, he's key for them in the playoffs. I don't think we're realizing that he is the Raptors' Al Horford, basically. I mean, he's elite on defense. He's their smartest defender. He's a lockdown post defender. He's an even better passer than Al. And he can stretch out the opposing centers by taking and making threes. So he basically is their Al. And Seth, I know how you hold Al so dearly. That's why I'm trying to kind of bring you over to my side by mentioning your sweet love. I'm
When
thinking
he
in the next
stretches out the opposing centers, does he like go over to them pregame and like lift their leg up and?
No, I just mean he fucks them so hard that he stretches out their asshole. Okay, Jesus.
Oh.
You made me say it.
We all
What
knew
the
it.
kids bet. So
even the kids shouldn't have heard that.
So they might not even have to double Joel in the next round, which is huge for them. And I know Vucevic is no Joel Embiid, but he absolutely locked him down in the series. And I know what? I did some research to back it up. That's right, the second career time I've done research. So Vuce this season was 21, 12, and 4. 21 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists per game. And basically, he was shooting 52% from the field, 26% from 3, and 79% from the line, right? In round 1 against Marc Gasol, 11 points per game, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 36% from the field. He was last in PR out of any of the centers in the first round, whereas during the season, he was second overall for all centers in PER. Now, once again, I know he's no Joel Embiid, but he absolutely shut him down, and that's one of the main reasons why they won. I mean, obviously they're the better team, but so I'm just looking forward to seeing what he can do against Joel in the second round. I think that, I mean, they've never had this before. Jonas Valanciunas is not a lockdown post defender. He's not an elite, smart defender. He's not a good passer, and he can't make threes. So this is an element that they've never had against opposing centers, and I'm just pretty excited to see what happens with Mark versus Joel in the second round.
They also have Kyle Lowry.
They
Thank
do. Great
Kyle just lists their entire roster.
He's ass. He's ass.
He is. He's having a tough time shooting in the playoffs in his career. But they do have Kawhi Leonard. Wait, do you say Kyle has an ass or he is an ass? Because both are true.
Yeah, that's true.
He said, yeah. Let's hit on Warriors Clippers real quick because the Warriors lost to the Clippers again. And I am shocked.
Do you know
Shouldn't
the
be stricken.
Warriors have Andrew Bogut?
Just listing their roster. Kyle, why don't you go on a rant on how the Warriors are so bad and they're going to lose in the second round?
I mean, I've ranted
He
all night.
doesn't have another
but
rant in him. He just doesn't have it.
I mean, if you watch that, the second game, they were up 30-something points a couple minutes into the third quarter, and you let the Clippers of all teams come back against you, right? Okay, so you think, wow, the Clippers just did that Warriors are going to put them away the next 2 games or 3 games, however many it takes. So what happens 2 games later? The Clippers just, I don't want to say demoralized, but they took it to the Warriors again, both times on the Warriors' home court. Like, that's just not a team to me that it isn't excusable for a team that's supposedly the greatest team in NBA history. And people want to argue well, like you, Sam, you said, even if they have chemistry issues, their talent should overcome those chemistry issues if they have any. But
we would think, especially against the Clippers.
This Clippers team is literally just 2 people that are competent shooting the ball, 1 player that plays very good on man-to-man defense, and then a big guy that literally doesn't shoot outside of dunking a basketball or laying it up off of cuts. That's it. That's their entire offense. And if they can't stop that, how do you expect them to top or stop the most efficient offense in the NBA and the 3rd best defense in the NBA efficiency-wise since the All-Star break, who look better than ever right now? And we saw them win a game against supposedly one of the other best defenses in the NBA when James Harden shot 3 of 20-something because he affected the game that much. To me, it's just like Houston right now is as healthy as they've ever been in the playoffs. They're firing on all cylinders. Everything's clicking in their game. And now they get the Warriors 1 round earlier off extended rest. And who knows? The Warriors might lose again when they go to play the Clippers tomorrow or tonight once we drop this, So give me Houston all day when they have extended rest, the best offensive player in the NBA, the best offensive efficiency team, and the 3rd best defensive efficiency-wise in the NBA against a team that can't even put away the 8th seed.
So let me make a counter, if I may.
Not allowed.
And let's just use this as a transition into the second round matchup, shall we, gang? So this is probably the most interesting matchup of the second round, Warriors-Rockets, which we assume is going to happen unless the Warriors fall to the Clippers in the first round, which
wouldn't be surprised.
Would set Oakland and LA on fire. But here are my thoughts. They are thusly speaking. I expect the Warriors to win the next game. In fact, I expected them to win the last game. And I think that, like you said, Kyle, even no matter how many problems they might be having, I thought they had 2 of the top 3 players in the league, so that should count for something. And they have a couple players who I think can give James Harden more problems than anyone on the Utah Jazz did. And I always get a little nervous about picking a team. Now, I will say I haven't decided who to pick in this series yet, but I'm just playing devil's advocate to you. So I get a little nervous picking a team where there's just one thing that they do every time, and that's how they succeed, which is James Harden, isolation, going for the floater, the lob, or kicking out to the 3. Obviously, that's been very successful, but the Warriors have Draymond and Clay to throw at them in the perimeter, and Iguodala off the bench. I think they have a lot more smart, long, athletic wing players who are much better defenders than anyone that the Jazz had to throw at Harden. I think we all know that, right? But like you said, Harden is the most efficient offensive player in the league. But I just think that when you have Steph and KD and you can do so many different things with them, and you have Clay and all the Rockets have, or not all, but what they lean on the most is James Harden isolation, I would just be a little more confident that the Warriors can stop that than the Jazz. But, I was also confident that the Warriors were going to sweep the Clippers. So I guess what do I know? I mean, I think that usually I would just say the Warriors have more talent. Let me pick them until I see them lose. But I don't know. I've
lost that last year too, and the only reason they lost is because of injuries. The only reason Houston lost was because of an injury, in my opinion. I mean, they didn't have their second best player, and they also shot 0 for 24 in 1 quarter.
I mean, I don't think it's crazy to pick Houston. I think a lot of people are going to pick Houston, but
I
I
also
don't
don't
know.
know
I'm still up in the air about it.
what is the Warriors lineup going to look like? Because if they have Andrew Bogut on the floor, that's a complete pick and roll nightmare for the Warriors with James Harden. And if they got Kevon Looney on the floor, in my opinion, I think Capella is going to dominate him down low. So there's their two-man game right there. No matter what center they run on the floor, unless they're going to just go 48 minutes of all their death lineup and have KD or Draymond at the 5, and even then, I just they're too efficient of a team, and I know a lot of people don't like. You just think, oh, it's the James Harden show. Well, Chris Paul's playing as well as he's played all season. PJ Tucker all season, and especially in these playoffs, has been insane. And I know a lot of people don't talk about him, but he is, I think, one of the best defensive players in the league. And if he's going to get a wide open three, I love his chances of knocking down the majority of those wide open threes that he's going to get off these James Harden drives. And then you got also Eric Gordon, who, if needed, can go off for 30 something points, but he hasn't had to. But he's still putting up like 20 some, almost 20 some points a game. So
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I know I didn't mention Chris Paul at all, but I still, Chris Paul is your second best player. Fine, if you're saying PJ is your third or fourth best player, well, I have Klay Thompson on the other side who can do more than just knock down open threes. He knocks down everything he looks at, and is just almost as good of a defender as PJ, I would say. I mean, you look at the matchups, and you say Steph versus Harden. Okay, maybe Harden's been better this year, and then you go to your second best player, Chris versus Kevin Durant. I'll take Kevin Durant. Then you have Clay versus PJ. I'll take Clay, excuse me. And then you have Draymond versus Eric Gordon, and I'll take Draymond. I mean,
I think it's
unless
Draymond versus Capella, and I take Capella in that, but that's fine.
I wasn't going position, just best players.
No,
Oh, I
I
see,
know.
but still, yeah. Well, I'd still take Draymond over Capella, and unless I don't know,
Draymond shoots
unless
like he has a
like
backpack on. He's the biggest bitch in the
Capella
NBA.
can't shoot
I
either,
hate
so
him.
I don't know why you're
I
making
hate
that
him.
that thing. Yeah, you just hate Draymond. So I don't know. It's
Sucks.
just they're just better, and I would be. I don't know. There must be something going on if they lose. So what
Double
do
or
you think?
nothing from the. Oh, you don't know who you're picking yet. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been going back and forth.
I agree with all of you.
Thanks.
And
That's so nice, Seth.
just why can't both teams win? Wouldn't that be nice?
I fucking
I
hate
think
the Warriors.
I think the Rockets are definitely playing better as a team right now. I could see the Warriors still pulling it out. I'm not sure who I'm going to pick in this matchup, but maybe the Clippers will surprise everybody and save us the having to decide and beat the Warriors in the next couple
I
games.
would love that so
wild.
much.
I would love it too. I think
Sam,
we're.
get off your phone. Let's go to the next.
Oh, you guys are fucking ready? I'm sorry. I was just Googling pictures of Draymond Green naked. Let me just scroll through all my nice Marc Gasol stats. Seth.
Okay, I will let you do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not preview. Let's not preview Nuggets or Spurs versus Blazers because we don't know which one will be yet. The Spurs just forced the seventh game tonight. But I will say it does kind of feel like it's the Blazers' time to make the conference finals, doesn't it, guys?
It does.
I was saying that like I think it's no matter who they match up with. As much as I love Denver and I despise a couple players on the Spurs, Portland right now is kind of in that same Houston boat where they're clicking on all cylinders, and I don't think either team really has a way to stop Damian Lillard, at least stop him well. So I think this is the year we do see Dame make it to the conference finals, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see that.
Is it Davis Bertans? Is that who you hate on the Spurs, Kyle?
No, I like Davis.
Is it Davis?
I hate
I think the announcers say Davis.
I don't care what they call him. I hate DeMar. I hate. Who's the dude that literally has no hair until he has pubes just on the top of his head?
Derek White.
Derek White.
Yes.
Like
I
how he
hate him
immediately
just
know who
because
he
of
is.
how he looks.
Well, he was on my
Real mature,
fantasy team,
Kyle.
so I love
Real
him.
And I
mature.
despise their bench. All of them.
All right, well,
Patty
Kyle
Mills?
Spurs.
Patty Sunken Eyes
Sunken
Mills
Eyes
himself?
Mills.
You think that's his nickname on Basketball Reference?
I want you to look it up. If it's not the granite countertop, it's got to be Sunken Eyes Mills.
Uh,
I was
he's got two nicknames. It's Patty Cakes or Pat Stacks.
I was gonna say in regards to the Blazers, I think it'd be so nice for them to make a conference finals because I think that Damian Lillard and the Blazers are this team that every year we're like, they're nice, but like, what are they? They're not gonna really contend in the playoffs. And they've had such a nice infrastructure and culture that I just really want them to use that to push through to the conference finals. So I'm rooting for Damian, even though I do love Jokic as well, though.
I do
He
too,
is
but
a stogie boy at heart.
No, 100%. He's the focal point of the all stogie
Of any
NBA
stogie
team.
boy offense.
But I don't think they would lose the series because of Jokic. They would lose the series because, I mean, you're not going to put Jokic on Dame, and I just don't. I don't know.
For sure. Let's take a quick hit of the Raptors 76ers before we wrap up, guys. This is going to be a very interesting series as well. Don't you think we have 4 just really great series coming up in the second round? I mean, better than I can remember, honestly, especially in the East. We're always looking forward to these 1 through 4 matchups, right? Because I think any of those 4 teams can make it out. And especially Raptors Sixers. I mean, you would probably say the Raptors have the best player in Kawhi, but Joel isn't far behind and maybe even ahead. And then you have a secondary player in Ben Simmons, who I think is better than anyone the Raptors have. Maybe you could say Pascal's better. But I think that's a really good matchup. And like I said, I'm looking forward to Gasol defending Embiid, and just the Raptors defense in general is just. I mean, you trot out a lineup of Lowry, Big Ass, Danny Green, Pascal Siakam, Marc Gasol. Who am I missing? Someone put a third player in there.
Kawhi Leonard.
Thank you. And Kawhi Leonard. And like, how are you supposed to score against that? Especially if 2 out of your 5 players can't shoot. So I think I'll be picking the Raptors in this series, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 6 or 7. And I think, since neither of you said anything, I'll just keep talking. I think this is kind of a prove it series for either team, right? Because the 76ers went through the process and this is their final outcome. So this should be the team you're making the finals with. You're done with assets. This is the process. This is the result. On the other hand, the Raptors can never make it to the finals because LeBron's been in the conference, and that's been their excuse. We're an elite team, but LeBron's in our way. I don't see LeBron. Do you guys? I can't see him.
It's because he's in my bedroom.
That he's behind you? Okay. Gotcha. So,
just kidding.
If
I would
no
never
LeBron,
take
prove
LeBron
it to
into
me
my bed
that
when
you-
he's on the Lakers.
of course, just prove it to me that you guys can make the finals now that LeBron's gone. So I'm interested to see which one of these teams can push through. You guys now can put input in.
Everything you're saying, I'm also interested in, except for the Gasol part. I don't care about him.
I don't care about him either.
I'm alone on my Gasol Island, and you know what? I've made a nice cabin there. I'm enjoying my time.
You know what I will say is the Sixers have TJ McConnell.
The only thing Marc Gasol's got going for him is that one of his nicknames is Big Burrito.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anything else to say? Because
I don't think Gasol's his last name.
I have to pee so hard that I might pull out a kidney.
You
stone.
said you peed right before this.
Don't
It
you
says
get
that
kidney stones if you don't pee?
He was born Marc Gasol Saez.
He was born a big burrito because he looked like a big burrito when he came out.
So wait, what was Pau Gasol born? Was he also born the same thing? Pau Gasol Saez?
I'm gonna literally pee my pants right now.
He was. Pau Gasol has 3 nicknames. Meal Ticket, don't understand it. E.T., doesn't look like E.T. And 3, Kung Pao, he's not Asian. What's happening here?
Okay, can we have this fucking podcast or what?
His name's Pau, so.
Wow, that makes
Kung Pao.
sense. But they spelled it P-O-W, so that's why I was thrown off.
I can't believe we're still talking right now.
Everybody stop talking.
Okay, Kyle, just tell him what day he did whatever, and then we can sign off.
I hope you all celebrated last weekend to your fullest because we've been preparing for this day on the podcast for years. On Friday, he went down, but on the third day, he rose again. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go pee my eyes out.